Good morning. Today is Thursday, the 24th. Is that right? Yes, the 24th. We're almost done with week 5 of the weirdest school year ever. Today we're on a testing schedule because you're doing MAP tests. This week the schedule is a little different, or your groups are a little different than they were last week, and you should be just testing with your regular advisory period teacher first thing in the morning. I don't know about you, but I'm liking that a lot better. I think it's going a lot more smoothly. For me, anyway. I'll be interested to see what you think about the revised MAP testing schedule and groups. I want to talk about COVID-19 today. Let's talk about our numbers here in Arkansas from last week. So this is from Monday to Sunday of last week. We had 5,309 new positive tests for COVID-19. That's from PCR tests, which is what we've been using this whole time. That's what we're familiar with, the stick the thing up your nose test, which sometimes takes days for the results to come back. We've been using something called antigen testing, which is a different type of testing. It's slightly less reliable, but it's a lot cheaper, and it's a lot quicker to get results back. So that 5,309 people, that does not include people who had positive antigen tests. At some point, I'll probably start including those in the other numbers. There have been 57 people who have for sure died from COVID-19 in the last week here in Arkansas. And we have to remember when we're talking about deaths from COVID-19, that's not the only thing we're worried about, right? A lot of people who have COVID-19 don't show many symptoms at all. Some people act like they kind of have a cold or something like that. Some people get really, really sick and, are in bed for days and super, super miserable, but still recover from the virus, right? And some people who get really, really sick have really bad organ damage. This is a virus that attacks people's organs in a really, really destructive way. There have been people who've survived coronavirus but had to get a double lung transplant. There are a huge percentage of people who are hospitalized with COVID-19, have measurable and significant heart damage from the virus. So when we think about, 57 people is a lot. 57 people died last week from COVID-19 in Arkansas. We don't really have a statistic for how many people will have health problems for the rest of their lives. Have to see doctors, have to be on medications, have to, have real discomfort and pain for the rest of their lives possibly because of the virus. I really wish we had a number for that, because I think that might make us take this even more seriously. I don't know how on earth they'd keep track of a number like that, but it's something to keep in mind when we're deciding how careful to be with ourselves and our families about not catching the virus. So a lot of you have had questions about a vaccine. Some of them have been just vaccine-related questions. Some of them I feel like have been questions related to, like, when we have a vaccine, maybe life will return to normal, so when will that be? And that is, like many questions you guys ask, not something that we have an answer to. Not because we aren't trying, or because we aren't smart, or because we aren't determined. It's because we've never dealt with a virus like this as a society before. And scientists are working really hard. In fact, there are about 200 teams of scientists throughout the world who are working on a coronavirus vaccine. And there are about 40 vaccines in clinical trials right now that look pretty promising. Let's talk briefly about what a clinical trial is. And I'm going to give you a link to a really, really good website that explains this more deeply for those of you who want to dig into it a little bit more. But basically, the point of a clinical trial is that when a doctor or a team of doctors finds stuff that they think will work well for a vaccine, they can't just give it to people. They can't just cook it up in their lab and go, yeah, we think this is great, mad scientist style, and then start giving it to people, because that's super, super terrifyingly unsafe, right? You don't have any idea if this stuff is going to work or if this stuff is going to be harmful to you or to people around you. So there has to be some clinical testing in order to establish whether a new drug works and whether a new drug is safe for people in the long term and in the short term. So there are multiple phases of clinical trials. Some of them are, and they involve hundreds and thousands, and in some cases tens of thousands of people. So those take a while. For example, an early type of clinical trial just pokes around with what an effective dosage might be. Then there are clinical trials that have to do with what type of people a vaccine would be effective for. Then there's a huge clinical trial toward the end of that process where many thousands of people are given a vaccine or a set of vaccines, and they're tracked to see not only is the vaccine apparently successful in training people's immune systems to cope with an illness, but is it safe? Are people having side effects or other issues from the vaccination? And only then do governments approve a vaccine for manufacture and for use with the general public. And so that's where we are with a whole lot of vaccines right now. We're somewhere in those clinical trials. That means that there are lots of potential vaccines being cooked up, but nothing has been established to be safe and effective as of right now. So when will that happen? Well, again, it's a really hard question to answer. We can give you some thoughts about it, but we can't say, all right, on April 87th of next year, we're going to have a vaccine for COVID. Partly because our government has waived some rules and changed some guidelines for companies and to get through these clinical trials. So ordinarily, a vaccine may take years to get, or always takes years to get from development to being widely available. And there's a huge rush, obviously, for a COVID-19 vaccine. And so they're really, really hurrying on that. So this will be, whenever we get it, something that is just like a record-breaking speed for a virus or for a vaccine to be developed. So back to when, right? Most scientific and medical experts say that we shouldn't plan on or hope for having a vaccine that's available to the general public, to you and I, until sometime next year, likely sometime in the late spring or summer. That seems like a long time. It is possible that there will be a vaccine available sooner than that for specific people, for example, for healthcare workers, people who are working with sick people who have COVID-19. There may be a vaccine available to those groups of people earlier than that, possibly even by the end of this year. But that's not something that's going to be likely to affect you and I a lot. It would be given to certain groups of people to help keep them safer. And you and I probably are not in one of those groups of people. So for us, probably next spring, next summer is the soonest we will get a vaccine. When we're talking about vaccines, let's mention that because in any winter, in any flu season, it's really important that we all get a flu vaccine. But this year, it's even more important to keep the number of people who have the seasonal influenza at a minimum so that we can cope with COVID-19 this year. So if you've never gotten a flu shot before, now may be the time to get a flu shot this year, partly for you and your family and partly just for everybody, so that the healthcare system isn't swamped with people who have symptoms like that and need to be taken care of. Let's see. Oh, I was going to tell you, and this is already 10 minutes long. I was going to tell you about something that I tried to do. There's a company called Moderna who's doing a big late clinical trial of a vaccine for COVID-19, and they are working with many, many hospitals throughout the country, and one of them is Baptist Health here in Little Rock. And so I applied to be part of that clinical trial, and they accepted me And I thought that was going to be really cool because I could take you guys through that process with me, and you guys could learn some things about vaccine testing trials. But then they kicked me out. Apparently, they already had enough, I don't know, 45-year-old women or, I don't know, people with arms or something. So they had enough of somebody, and so they didn't need me, and so I got kicked out of the trial. And I was super disappointed because I thought that would be pretty neat. But anyway, I tried. I hope you guys have a good day after you watch this video. My physical science classes will have a CK12 assignment. Please remember that I am no longer accepting work that was given before this week. So that's gone. If you have a 0, then you have a 0. But remember that you have a quiz. Physical science classes will have a quiz tomorrow on something you've covered in CK12 so far this week. So stay tuned for that. I hope you guys have a good day. I hope I have a good day. And I'm here if you need me.